if you don't know what it is you stand for, and you start getting off on course, how are you going to know when to come back on track? That's what those ethos or those principles do. So, for example, these could be 5 things, these could be 10 things. But like, what are the things that you stand for now?
Hey, what's up? I'm your host, Bob Thompson, and welcome to Unleashing Greatness, the #1 show for people who are ready to finally start or scale their own business and do it successfully. Over the last 9 years, I've scaled my little basement business to 15 plus locations and several other businesses. But it hasn't been without trial and error and lots of adversity. I'm here to share with you the strategies and tools that actually work when running a business and how not to lose yourself while doing it. So if you're ready to unleash the greatness within you, let's dive into today's show. First off, want to super thank you for being here, for doing this today.
Yeah, man.
Obviously, the podcast is new for me, but it's all about getting value for everybody else, whether mostly entrepreneurs and stuff. And I think one of the best relationships that I've formed in the last year is with you. You know, and I was able to connect that from O'Brien. And he was just like, yeah, I've been working with Dan for, I think it was like a year when you were working with him.
About a year, yeah.
And he was just like how much of a game changer it was. And
man.
I was stuck in that, like I had recently moved out here. I was trying to figure out like, all right, there's something missing from my life. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
There's something missing at that point, and I needed to figure out. I knew that I couldn't figure it out on my own, and I also needed like accountability and that. So that's where we connected.
Yeah.
It's been quite a while. And when I've been putting this podcast together and I was thinking about it, I think a big thing for me now, especially as I continue my entrepreneurial journey, is making sure that I don't get lost in the ways that I got lost before. And I think that's something that happens for a lot of people. And we were just talking about it. And then I was just like, well, I'm not the one to talk about this. It's not my area of expertise. It's you, bro.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm excited too, because I think that over the years that I've been coaching, which if I zoom out a little bit, isn't even really that long, like maybe 13 or 14 years coaching entrepreneurs and high performing people.
It's a lot of time.
It's not a long time if you look at like some of the people that have been doing it the best. You know what I mean?
True.
It's like I feel like I'm a small fish in this game, but I do have some experience coaching some high level people. Yeah. And what's so interesting about it is like it's really easy to get lost in the day-to-day stuff, or with hyper focusing on one area and then like neglecting some of the others.
Oh yeah.
And what I'd really love to cover today is like uncovering some of those areas that high performing people tend to neglect.
Yeah.
That way, like we can create like a high level view of the areas that are most important, so that you can have like almost like a sense of balance over all of the areas.
I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So, because I'm always learning, and this is something that I need to do, so I'm going to be getting the benefit out of this as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
But I think that's something I actually told myself, especially as I started and then as I was scaling, and I've heard this from other people, that there is no such thing as balance.
Sure.
And especially when you're a business owner or an entrepreneur. And so I think that'd be awesome to kind of like touch on that. Like, how can you actually do that? Because otherwise you're just going to get lost, you're going to get burnt out, and you're actually probably going to get like destroyed and kicked out of this game. Yeah. So I think that'd be awesome. And I think the viewers and the listeners will get a lot of benefit from it.
I think there's this beautiful dance that you as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, whatever your title is, there's this beautiful dance that you get to have between balance and consistency and absolute chaos. and you get to like find that sweet spot where you can dance in between the two. If I look back at like my own career in sports or in business or whatever, there were times where things were really good and I had things in balance, but then there were other times where it was like I was completely out of whack. I was hyper focused on my business and that was all going well, but I was neglecting some of these other things. And it's like when you can have the awareness that you are kind of neglecting some of those other things, that you can kind of dance back, get things under control, and then, just is going back and forth and being able to do that with flexibility that I think is where most high performing people do really well. What I don't believe in is you just being entirely stringent on one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's really hard to sit here and say, well, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do 8 different things that are going to help keep me in balance for the day. Like, I think on the surface level, that sounds great. And I think in a lot of like marketing and like what a lot of the gurus are teaching nowadays is that style.
Okay.
But the reality of it, at least for me, it's been my experience that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
I don't like always wake up in the mornings anymore and do all of these 8 different things for all of these different areas of my life. It just doesn't work like that.
So actually, taking a step back then, so what does your morning look like?
Honestly, like I used to be one of those guys that would get up and I would do like the rituals and, you know, go through all that stuff. But nowadays I feel like it varies from season to season. Right now, what it looks like is I typically get up at the same time every day. And I'll get right into the hot tub, and I'm typically there for 45 minutes to an hour. And it's in that time where like I'll typically do one of 2 things. I'll either leave my phone on the railing on my back deck, and I'll just tune in to the turkeys or the deer or the squirrels, because I got all that stuff going right now. And like I'll just like get my mind right for the day, or I'll have my phone and I'll be formulating my list. Like, what's most important for me today? What are the things I need to do at the house? What are the things I need to do in, you know, just like the random things? What are my mission critical items? Which I think mission critical is something we should talk about too. That's really helpful. Yeah. But I like to put my list together. Yeah. But either way, like it's prepping me for the day. And so after I get done with the hot tub, I'll go back inside and I'll get a quick stretch. Now that my body's nice and warm, I'll go through a 15-minute stretch just to kind of like loosen things up, get my circulatory system on board, get my muscular system on board. And then I'll dive in, whatever that first mission critical item is for the day. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So that makes sense. And I think that's where a lot of people give themselves pressure. And we actually kind of talked about it before today even kicking off, before we started recording. It was like, all right, you know, for me, I'm thinking I got so many things to do.
Yeah.
You know, and how am I going to split it up? And we've been working on how to actually break those up.
Yep.
So there's congruency and things actually get done instead of this to-do list being piled. But I do like that because that's one of the... Really, I don't have a morning ritual either anymore. And I used to never have one. I used to be like, when I wake up, whether that's back in the day when I was, you know, partying and stuff. And that would be, I'm waking up at 9 today, or I'm waking up at 7 or whatever. It was just, hey, when I wake up and then I get going on my to-do list, so to speak. Now it's more like I wake up and I'm waking up earlier now than I was before. Yeah. But it's, you know, I'm going to have coffee and I'm going to read.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, it's going to, you know, kind of like similar. It's like setting my day up for success.
Yeah.
It's almost like that level of meditation and getting focus and like kind of getting myself set up to accomplish the things that I need to accomplish, but it's not a million things I have to do. Yep. Usually, you know, one of the things that I'm impressed about recently talking to you is how like you only have a few key things each week. That's like, hey, if I do these, it's good. Yeah. But like for me, it's like I read, whether it be generally reading on spirituality and then business, or like right now, it's pretty much just business or finance kind of things right now, you know, and then I'll add in some spirituality later in this week or next week. You know, and then doing that and then, you know, getting into my day, like getting started. And it's like, what's today's focus? You know, what do I have to do? What is my scorecard for the week to be successful? And it's like, that doesn't mean, because what I would do is like, earlier in the week, I'd be like, I have to get every single thing done for every single business, and then just get like overwhelmed and stressed. And then by the end of the week, I'm like, I missed this or that. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, definitely, man. And that's one of like the pitfalls of being a high performing dude or a woman, is that like you're good at so many different things that you want to take on all of them, and then you want to like almost like create the pressure of needing to get them all done today. Yeah. You know, and that's something that I'll easily fall into the trap of too. I want to do a podcast. I want to have a coaching program. I want to work with these brands. I want to, you know, park out all 10 of my acres this week. You know what I mean? I want to do all the things. Yeah. But I realize so many times that I put myself in these situations and I put this pressure on myself to perform. And a lot of times, like, I don't get it all done. Yeah. And it, you know, it almost like beats me up a little bit from like a mental standpoint. And I get in my head about it. And so what I've got to keep coming back to is, A, I don't have to have everything done today. Yeah. And B, what are my mission criticals right now? And knowing that has really helped me to focus.
So why don't we dive into what mission criticals are, so the people that are listening or watching can figure out exactly what you mean by that. And then maybe from there, I don't know what flow we're going to take.
Sure.
But maybe from there, we can kind of talk about those key categories that we had mentioned earlier, that you had mentioned, like, hey, this is how you can create that balance.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
So
I've said it a few times. I'd be curious exactly what you mean.
For sure. So to give a little bit of a backstory, I come from a military family. Mm-hmm. My dad served in Vietnam in Desert Storm. My brother did tours in Afghanistan. He was part of 101st Airborne. Has a really cool history in what he did. Mission critical comes from them. Okay. Because in the military, you always have a mission, and there's always critical points to a mission. Yeah. And so it came from that. Like, if I could only do one or two things every day that would absolutely move me forward, no matter what. Mm-hmm. Like, if nothing else gets done besides these one or two things, what are they? Yeah. And so for me, I don't ever do more than 2 mission criticals a day. Okay. And I'll always do one first thing in the morning. Okay. And so if I have 20 things, what are the 2 that matter the most? Yeah. And no matter what, I have them done. So like, if I was to show you my list of things to do today, I have a specific category called mission critical, and I have 2 things in there. Yeah. So mission critical has helped me to get clear on what's most important, what do I need to do right now, and like what's going to move me forward the most. Okay. And it's simple. It's the 2 most important things. Yeah. And to take that a little bit further, I'll always do one first thing in the morning, because typically mission critical is the most challenging, or it's going to take me the most time to do, or I need to think clearly the most. So first thing. Do you find that before you were like, hey, I'm going to start doing these first thing in the morning, that the later you pushed them off, the more likely they weren't going to get done? Or you get sucked into the things that you think you're being productive? You're like, I'm knocking stuff off my to-do list, but it's actually not moving me forward. Yeah. So there's 2 things there. Yeah. There's the illusion of progress, which is just doing things just to be doing things, which is easy to get sucked into. But then the other part is, I know that throughout my day, I've only got so much bandwidth to make quality decisions, to be able to think clearly enough. Okay. And at some point in my day, because I take on so much, my quality of decision making and my quality of focus is going to decrease. And if I push off the most important things to later in the day, then it's going to be more challenging for me to complete that at a high level. Yeah. So why not just start early with the most important thing? Yeah. And I think that, like, we've been taught that, but like, how often are we actually doing it? You know? Yeah. I think that's thinking of myself, thinking of my franchisees or the gym owners and stuff that I work with. I think that's the big thing, is people get really busy throughout the day, throughout the week. The day goes by them and they feel like they're doing a lot of things. Yeah. And they're like, I'm not seeing the progress. I'm not where I need to be. But at the end of the day, it's because you're doing stuff that's actually not going to move you forward. Right. You know, so we're getting busy. We're creating that illusion. I like that, what you said, that illusion of progress. Right. You know, which then will allow us to be like, well, this doesn't work. Right. When in reality, it's like, you're actually not doing the things that need to be done to actually move you forward. And I think that's where a lot of the high achievers are able to discover. They're able to discover, like, it's actually not if I'm working 12, 16-hour days. You know, that's like, we give ourselves a pat on the back for being able to do that. Right, we think like, we're Billy Badass over here for being able to work so much and ignore every other aspect of our life as a consequence and the result. Right. But it's like, were we actually being productive that entire time? That's it. So I think the big thing is being able to identify those actual areas that are going to move you in your business forward, whatever the key area you're working on. And then also just ignoring the rest. Yeah. You know, when you don't get stuck in those things that you think you need to do, how much life progresses, which I think is really important. So I think that's huge. Yeah, definitely, man. So thinking about, like, all right, now that we know our mission criticals, how do you go about it? Like, if you were to work with an entrepreneur who's like, you know, like me, when we connected, like, hey, I'm lost. Yeah. Like, I don't feel as if I truly know I'm achieving my purpose, you know, and stuff like that. Like, here's these things that I've done, but here's these things that I've kind of like sacrificed, you know, and you know, as I grow as a person, I want to focus on all these areas. Kind of like, walk us through, like, when you were to work with an entrepreneur or high achiever, however that is kind of defined, then kind of the areas that you're going to focus on and how to kind of create that balance. So first off, I don't have any specific framework. And I think maybe even we talked about this, but like, I don't have a specific framework for how I approach my clients. Yeah. I allow it to be dictated by where they're at right now. Yeah. And then we create that. But what I've found is most helpful is actually just getting clear on what's most important to you at this stage of your life. Mm-hmm. And typically it's 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 things. Okay. You know, most high performing people are doing 3 to 6 different things at a high level. And then let's identify what those levels are or what those things are. Yeah. So for most people, it's their health mm-hmm. or their fitness. It's their family. It's their finances. You know what I mean? Like there's different things. And what we first need to do is we need to identify those big movers in your life. Yeah. And once we have them identified, then it's easy to then just go into creating subcategories for each. Yeah. You know? So like, for example, let's call it an example of 2 of them. Yeah. So let's say it's fitness and finance. Yeah. Okay. And it's important for you to make sure that you're prioritizing fitness and finance. Mm-hmm. Well, great. Now that we have those 2, what are the subcategories in each? Mm-hmm. So what does it mean for you to be on top of your fitness? Yeah. What do you need to be doing? Do you need to be running every day? Mm-hmm. Do we need to be stretching every day? Do we need to be training in the gym or at home? Mm-hmm. What's most important to you in those categories? Yeah.
I think like before, I guess I'll actually just answer it. But one of the things that I've definitely learned from you is it's usually the one that challenges you the most. Sure. It's the ones that you don't want to do, that you're getting uncomfortable, right. and you've probably pushed off. So obviously, like when I think of fitness, and I think most people listen, like, you know, because obviously I like working out. Yeah. So it was like, hey, I can lift. I'll go to the gym. But I wasn't doing any cardio. Yeah. You know, and it's like that was an area that probably needed work. Nutrition. I was good, not great. Like that needed some work. So if I was going to grade myself, hey, I'm going to improve my fitness score. It wasn't like, hey, can I train longer or anything like that in the gym? Yeah. Could it be, all right, well, I'm completely neglecting this cardio aspect, but I'm also avoiding something that's just a basic human need, the ability to run, because it was hard. It was uncomfortable and I sucked at it. Yeah. So like for me, for sure, that was something that I needed to work on was getting in the, out here, getting in the mountains and running, and building up that skill. Yeah. And then also same thing with finances. Like, for anybody listening, it's what do you find uncomfortable? What are you avoiding? Are you avoiding saving? Are you avoiding investing? You did both of those things and then breaking down how that should actually look. That was actually one of the things that we talked about before we hit the record button was one, like in business, one of the principles I really like is using the profit first model for mm-hmm. business owners. Yep. And I learned about this like when I was in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. And it's really simple. Like the concept is to pay yourself first. Yes. Depending on wherever level of business you are. Because it's easy. Like I've totally done this for you. You make this money, put it back in the business, all this stuff. But the business of potentially, if you look at the statistics, is going to go away in one form or another. And maybe you create another business. Maybe you evolve as the business owner and you do something else. But most businesses aren't around after 5 years. Sure. So if you have that small window, it's like an athlete. If you have that small window of success, what do you need to do to make sure that you have success afterwards? So for business owners, I think a lot of the times is they're not good with their finances because they don't know what they're doing and they don't want to. It's either they don't want to know where they're going wrong or it just freaks them out. So using like those principles of profit first, and having accounts for your taxes, but paying yourself first, no matter what, whether you're doing a draw, whether you're, just taking the profits or whatever, making sure that always happens. You have an account for that. You have an account for taxes. You have an account for payroll and all the other expenses in the business. So I think that's huge. But then also for the finance side of things, like, okay, now that you're getting that money, what are you doing with it? Yeah. What are you doing to think 15, 30, 45 years in the future? Yeah. One of the things that we've talked a lot about is like leaving a legacy. Yeah. What are you doing to take care of your children's children? Yeah. And what are you doing now to make that happen and that creating that delayed gratification? And again, it's most people, they want to just pay a financial advisor to do that. Yep. If they actually do anything. Yep. And I'm actually against that. So they do that if they do it at all. So it's like, hey, what are those areas? What are you ignoring now so that you can make sure you have long-term success? So looking at, this long-winded answer. Yeah. For me, fitness and finance, it would be, hey, those are those areas that I'm going to look into. Like for me in particular was like, how do I challenge myself with my fitness? Yeah. Because that's what I wasn't doing personally. And how do I challenge myself with my finances to get uncomfortable in that sense too? Because what I was doing, leading up to it wasn't where I wanted to be. Yeah. So for those that don't know, like I do a lot of like ultra marathon running in the mountains, typically that like 50 to 100 mile distance, which is on the surface level is like really weird. But there's a lot of parallels between running 100 miles and what you do
outside of the gym or outside of the mountains, what you do in your fitness or excuse me, in your finances or with your family or whatever. There's so many cool parallels. And like one of them is just the simple idea of seeking discomfort. I love the idea of doing things that are uncomfortable, that are going to cause me pain, that are going to cause me to feel like I'm not in control, but I know are going to give me a powerful reward in the end or down the road or sometime in the future, whatever it may be. And same thing with finances, man. Like when I first started getting like my financial house in order, it was like 2016. And I read a couple books that like really shifted a lot of things for me. But man, it was really challenging to be able to take a large amount of money that I would get from my business, and instead of going and doing what I wanted to do with it, actually socking it away in different accounts like you were just saying, because I knew that where I wanted to be wasn't going to be the place if I just continued to do things that I had always done. I needed to do the things that were uncomfortable. Because ultimately, like, they set me up to be in the position I am now, living out my dream, which was to be out in the mountains and to be able to, wake up when I wanted to and do the things that were most important to me. So you have to seek discomfort. You have to get uncomfortable.
So I want to like two things. I would love to share the story of the first time we ever ran.
Because
it was probably one of the most uncomfortable events I've ever done to this day.
Yes. So, so here's what I love about this. So I love to coach on the run. Coaching on the run. And it's something that I do with a lot of my clients. We either coach on the run or we walk and talk. Walk and talk is typically like we'll get on a treadmill or we'll just walk and coach. But coaching on the run is completely different. And what I love about it is the fact that A, you're in nature, B, you're getting that like runner's high from the endorphin release of just being out there. And 3, it's like you get the inspiration from thinking bigger and being held accountable to the things that are most important. So in my head, I'm like, all right, cool. This is perfect. Let's coach on the run, Bob. Let's go on a run in the mountains. It's going to be great. We'll have a great conversation. That wasn't the case.
No, not even close.
So we ended up going to Lion Mountain. Remember that?
Yes, I remember.
We went to Lion Mountain right outside of Whitefish, Montana. And I was like, let's just do this, easy 6-mile run. It'd be no problem. Not a lot of elevation. We'll be able to talk. We won't be too out of breath. And I remember getting like maybe a mile into it. And no disrespect, but we got about a mile into it. And I was like, this might have been a bad choice. This was a bad choice.
I knew it about a quarter mile in. So,
okay. I just remember like you being a little out of breath and, like one-word answers. And, I know from a coaching standpoint and from like a respiratory standpoint that when I'm getting one-word answers, cardiovascularly, you're not in a good place. So we ended up actually going from like a light jog down to a walk. And it was good, man. Like overall, like I thought you did fantastic, but it was tough. I know it was tough.
It was hands down probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do, believe it or not. So
which part?
Just the entire run.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, because I think I remember like I hadn't run to like set the scene for everybody else. Like I probably hadn't run since rugby in college.
Ooh, okay.
So, and I graduated, I stopped playing in 2010. So over a decade ago was the last time that I ran.
Man, yeah.
And I like to, and prior to that, like, and I wasn't even good. My cardio during rugby wasn't even good. I like eventually kind of got my groove, but I got crushed during that too.
Yeah.
I grew up playing sports and stuff, but I also smoked about 2 packs a day.
Wow, I didn't know you smoked cigarettes.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Yeah.
I never knew you smoked.
I started smoking at 10 years old.
Cool.
So this is, for anybody who has a family, this is kind of important too. Like, all my family doesn't smoke anymore.
Okay.
But I grew up, like my dad smoked multiple packs of cigarettes a day. My mom smoked. So my sister smoked, my brother smoked, and I smoked. And he used to get cartons at a time. So he would go, we lived in Jersey, he would go over to Pennsylvania because they were cheaper. He would buy like 3, 4, 5 cartons at a time.
Okay. And
then we would just steal packs of cigarettes because it was available to us. So
sure.
I share that just because, a lot of what we're going to be covering today, if you do have a family, and I know that was like big thing for me was, hey, I want to have a family one day when we started coaching.
Yeah.
But it's not always what you say, it's what you do. And it's those actions you take are what your kids are going to see or your employees are going to see.
Yeah, man.
So anyway, I smoked for a while, and I think that I never quite cleared out my lungs. It's an excuse I'm going to give myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it had been over a decade. So obviously I lifted and I ate pretty well. Almost 220-ish pounds.
Yeah.
At the time, hadn't run it over a decade.
Yeah.
And didn't do any cardio.
Yeah.
The last time I think I did a little bit of cardio might have been like 5-minute hit sessions, as I like did a photo shoot a couple years ago.
Oh.
So dude, I was smoked. So I remember starting the run, and I remember even going into it. I don't think you told me it was 6 miles.
Yeah.
I think I knew it was going to be some mileage, and I was like, hey, this is going to be hard, but I need to do hard things anyway.
Yep.
And it's going to be really good. And this is what I want to do. I want to be able to do this. I know that there's a reason I've been avoiding it. And it's like, I shouldn't be dead, like running. And I died like in the first mile. I legit died. And then somehow hours, I felt like later, we made it back. And it was just, it was super miserable, but it was also the start of something that was really beautiful for me.
What was that?
Well, I realized like how bad I was at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for somebody who was, into fitness, first off, even if I hadn't been running, it shouldn't have been that difficult.
Yeah.
So clearly I was neglecting something that's super important. And, how am I going to be able to keep up with like my kids if I can't even run a quarter mile in the mountains without dying?
That's it.
And how am I going to be able to be as productive as I can be if my heart's not working as well as it should be?
Yep.
So those were kind of those, it was almost like an aha moment. Like, yeah, you did not enjoy this. Like there's not one moment of that run that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
You did actually teach me a ton of great stuff that I still like. I think about every time I'm running, because you were like, I think you might have a heart attack. So let me teach you how to breathe while doing this. So I still like now I use that.
Yeah.
And I remember I did send you a video like months later.
Yeah.
Because you had another terrible run that just, it beat me. I got defeated.
Avalanche Lake?
Avalanche Lake,
Okay.
yeah. So like that defeated me because I quit actually on that. And that was one of those, that was a catalyst where I looked back. I was like, I don't like quitting things.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it just beat me up and shouldn't have been as difficult as it was. And like mentally, I was just like, we finished it, but it wasn't good. And, but so I think, for me, then it kind of like shifted. And as it was interesting because as I started running, as I started leaning into this challenge of something that I wasn't good at, I started like everything else started getting better.
Of course.
Like my productivity started getting better. My happiness started getting better. My clarity started getting better. Oh, and of course my lungs got better. So that was pretty good. So then I was able to like get better there. So yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to share that because I thought it was hilarious because, I know for you were like, yeah, this probably isn't gonna be that bad. And I remember like telling my girlfriend, and she's like, what? She's like, I think Dan just wanted to break you off. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he did. And he succeeded. Destroyed me.
So that being completely honest, was not my original intention. My original intention was like, and sometimes like, I feel like I'm still a little bit naive to this because running isn't hard for me until starts to get hard. So I guess like on the surface, like, oh, let's just go run 6 miles. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
That wasn't my original intention. My original intention was like, let me show Bob something that he hasn't done in a long time. Let me show Bob Montana, like real Montana. Yeah. And let's go have an inspiring conversation around it all.
Yeah.
Whoops.
And I think for people that aren't familiar with you, they will hear that you run these like ultra marathons in the mountains, and they'll go and like see your IG and all that stuff, and they'll see that, wow, this dude like crushes it. But you also weren't always that way.
Sure.
So you started like because you're overweight, not in a good place, and you could barely run. So I share that because that's where I was too, and you've done it personally for yourself and hundreds, if not thousands of other people too, to get past that. So it's one of those things that you have to go through it, but it may seem easy for you now, but it wasn't always.
No doubt.
And whereas like and that's a cool thing I think also happens in business.
No doubt.
Sometimes for business owners, the business actually becomes the easy part of their life. It's like, well, I know I can do this. I can generate more money. I can, increase revenue, increase profits. All I got to do is just this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, where's their faith life at?
Sure.
How are they showing up in their relationships?
Sure.
Are they a good partner? Like those are the things that are hard.
Yep.
and they just don't do them.
Yep.
You know, or they get away from, because just, I think in human nature, we want to shy away from things that challenge us or are hard,
Yep.
you know, especially if we have the skill set in something else, because that's, you know, I think, you know, for me, like when I started with you, my identity was built in business and money. Like that was where I put my identity around. And then it wasn't until, like I shared on the previous podcast, like, you know, hey, business had obviously shifted for me.
Yeah.
And I had known, I was like, I can't have this be what I'm all about, the only thing about me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I think that's kind of a good, like going into so how, you know, looking at these categories and stuff like that. I believe there's 8 that, you know, are kind of key categories
Typically,
that you typically like put in, you know, kind of like walk us through maybe some of those.
Yeah.
You know,
so I'll give you a few of them.
Yeah.
Here's like one of the funnest ones for me. It's play and adventure. Okay. And adventure has to be on your list of things that you're doing, because it's that thing that like keeps that like childhood presence, that childlike presence in you and alive. And I think that when you start to just focus on the business stuff, or you get like too wrapped up in that, you lose it. And I think that it has to be at the heart of what you're doing. And I think that adventure is one of those things that allows you to get really present with nature. And nowadays we're getting further and further from that presence, and further and further from nature. So at the surface level here, how can you inject more adventure into your day or into your life? If you go a little bit deeper when it comes to adventure, it's like, what are you doing to really connect with it?
Yeah.
What are you doing to connect with nature on a regular basis? Because in nature, it allows you to reconnect to things that are ultimately most important. The sky, the air, the trees, the earth, all of those things, those bring you back to where we all started.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing that I think we're getting further and further away from. So finding time to get into nature, to explore, to run, to swim, to jump. You know, a perfect quick example is a couple of days ago, I was out on this mountain run, and I was like really pushing to get these stupid 10-minute miles consistently, you know, and I was like doing really good, and I was running well, and I was coming up on this cliff, and it was just like this beautiful rock cliff, and I'm like, I wonder if I could get to the top of that thing. But you know what? I got to stay on track here. I got to get my 10-minute miles. And I'm like, you know what? Who says I have to get 10-minute miles today? Who says I need to stay on track with this pace? Let me go see what's going on over here. So I went and I figured out a way to climb up this, you know, this big rock face, and ended up having like this really amazing view of Tally Lake, which is the second deepest lake in Montana, that I wouldn't have got if I was just so focused on what my stupid watch and my pace was. You know what I mean? So it's like finding little ways to adventure, to like get back to that childlike curiosity that just brings you more fulfillment. And had I not done that, man, I wouldn't have had that experience. And I'm really grateful that I took time to break away from like my monotonous run to go and climb that rock.
You know, as you were sharing that, I did think about when we were running Avalanche, and then you had me climb that rock. And
that's right.
I was like, I can't do this. You're like, you can do it. And then I climbed. It was awesome. And then, because same thing, and I think as entrepreneurs, we're like, we have this task, we have to complete this task, and we have to like I think it's actually one of like our superpowers is we can really narrow down and do that. So, you know, I was like, but that actually did make that run more enjoyable. We were able to take it. I take that when I do go out. I'm like, just enjoy it. Just enjoy the moment. I think there's 2 things from that too is, one, we can do that a little bit in business. You know, we should make sure that we're having fun when we're doing it, and your team is having fun. But I think more importantly, because we can relate it back to business, but it's just stop with business. Like, get out and adventure and play out of business. And like, that's the key. So I think that's huge.
Yeah, man, you got to do it. You have to do it. And what I would encourage you as a listener or the viewer right now is to find ways to get out in nature and adventure. You don't need to do like you don't got to do like some Bear Grylls type stuff. You just got to go out and do something different. Mm-hmm. And maybe you don't have access to mountains or rocks or lakes like we do in Montana, but I guarantee you have a park. Yeah. I guarantee you can go get around some trees downtown. I guarantee you can get off the concrete and onto some grass. Yeah. Nature is wherever you are at. Yeah. And I know that you can seek it out. It's always there. I mean, I was even down in LA, like inner city LA, just a couple weeks ago. I still found nature out there. It's there. You just got to be able to know where it's at. Yeah. So find it.
I agree. Because before moving to Montana, I was out in the East Coast. I lived in Jersey, Delaware, Philly. So I lived in the city. Yeah. But in all those areas, and that was actually probably something I started with, attracted me out here. Yeah. I started actually just going on hikes and finding it. Maybe it's a 30-minute drive. Maybe it's a 5-minute drive, but it's something you need for yourself.
Seek it out.
You need that. You need to seek that out. Yeah. And get there. And it doesn't matter where you are. It's all around us, especially in the U.S. or wherever you live.
100%.
So once you get adventure and play, once you're kind of like looking at that other, what's another big area?
So another fun one for me, because I like fun first, is hobbies and interests. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this right now. We'll put you on the spot on your own show. Yeah. What are your hobbies? And don't say business. What do you do for you outside of business?
So it was interesting because I think when you asked me that question originally, I was like, I don't have anything.
Most high performing people don't.
Yeah. So however, now, so it's hunting. I'm getting it. I've never hunted before. Yeah. But my interests and hobbies now are, I would love to hunt. Yeah. So I'm actually going on my first ever hunt. Yeah. In a couple weeks. Yep. And I'm going with a buddy of mine, and we're using bows. Yep. So one of my hobbies is, and I actually started this a while ago, and then I got away from it. Yeah. But it's shooting my bow. Awesome. And it's getting better at that. So it's something that I try and do every single day. I do love reading.
Awesome.
So I read actually a ton. So I start my day every day reading, and I end my day reading every day. And usually, and this is probably my ADD, I'm usually reading a couple different books, but in a couple different areas, whether it be spirituality, business, and then something just for like fiction and fun.
Awesome.
So I have that, and that's usually how I end it. And then although I'm not able to do it as much right now, just because, so I'll actually kind of say like it's getting out in nature, it's hiking. I was going to say running because I did start falling in love with running. Of course. And, so we are talking about like, hey, that new plan that I can do just because I'm dealing with back injury and stuff of that nature. So it's running, but getting out in nature and hiking. So like this weekend, the girlfriend and I went out both Saturday and Sunday actually to get out to Lime Mountain actually both days, just getting out in nature and hiking. So those are, I think, would say probably right now, like kind of those three key areas for me. It's not like a ton of different things, but it's those things that I do enjoy and look forward to.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Now, for those listening and watching, what are your hobbies? Mm-hmm. If you can't think of at least one right off the top of your head, you need to get a hobby. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that like, look, I think that there's something really romantic about being solely focused on one thing, like that thing that you're absolutely great at. If it's tennis for Venus or Serena, if it's, fighting for guys like John Jones or whatever MMA fighters out there, and dedicating your whole life to that, I think that's amazing. But I also think that there's a lot of value in just being able to do something a little bit different that fills your cup in a different way. Mm-hmm. And so I would just encourage you to find whatever that is. Now that's a hobby. Let's talk about interests, because hobbies and interests are completely different. Yeah. I think that interests are something that high-performing people need. And here's the contrast. A lot of times high-performing people are incredibly, insanely good at one thing. It's their business. Yeah. Or maybe it's several things, whatever. But let's just say for business sake, it's growing their business. Okay. They make a lot of money. They have a lot of impact. That's a high-performing output. Mm-hmm. Okay? They put a lot of focus and time into that thing. Yeah. Well, an interest is something that I typically would look at as like a low performing interest, something that you don't need to like really just completely insanely focus on, but still fills your cup. So here's an example. I love building my business. That's my high performing. I also love raking leaves in the forest. I love raking pine cones in the forest. Yeah. I love going out and just running my chainsaw for 30 minutes to an hour. I love doing these low effort outputs that fill my cup in a different way. And you need to have that balance between high performing outputs and low performing outputs. And interests, things that interest you, are good for that. I love to sweep. Sweeping doesn't take me a lot of energy or focus, but I can just kind of like go on autopilot,
get like lost in it,
and just get lost in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As soon as pine cones start falling on my deck, best believe I'm out there. I'm getting them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like think about that right now. Like, what are some of those low performing outputs or efforts that you can inject into your day-to-day life that fill your cup in a different way? It gives you that contrast.
Yeah. No, that makes sense because it almost recharges you.
For sure.
It allows you to almost like shut down
for sure
that hyperactive brain a bit.
For sure.
We're constantly looking at creating this outcome,
yep.
and just enjoying the moment.
That's it.
I think a lot of people get lost in.
Presence.
Like, they just don't have that. And then I think presence is huge.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And it can be a variety of things, but I live on a ranch out in Montana. And so like just doing a little minuscule things, going out and, burning my slash piles, for example, is a low effort output that I can do that. It's just really good for my mental sanity.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. You have to have that thing where you can just, using that, it's burning off
for sure
that unused energy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. What's next?
So this one's been beaten to the core, but I think that finances got to be looked at. A few minutes ago, we made the comparison between not looking at some of the small things in your day-to-day that is sabotaging your health. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that we do a lot of that in our finances as well. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of small open loops that if we closed up in our finances could make a big difference in our income and ultimately like how much we have to save or contribute to bigger things down the road. Yeah. I look at it like this. When I was making a bunch of money back in like 2016, 2017, I knew that I had a bunch of these little open loops that I was neglecting of closing because I didn't want to take accountability that I was wasting money in these stupid little categories. And it wasn't until like I really was like, okay, I need to get a hold of this behavior. Yeah. I need to get a hold of this habit because I know it's sabotaging me. Mm-hmm. I know it's causing me stress. That I was actually, able to like really put that money that I was wasting to things that really mattered to me. Yeah. And I know that all high performing people have this. Mm-hmm. And the thought is like, well, I make enough money. It's fine. Whatever. Yeah. Okay, cool. But like, what if you could add some accountability and focus around this thing? Yeah. And be better off for it. Let's just say, I don't know. I don't drink coffee, but I don't have an issue with it. But like, let's say you drink too much coffee, and I don't know what's coffee nowadays, like $5 a coffee. I mean,
if you're buying it like from Starbucks or something like that, or out here like Montana, it's like going to be spending like $3 to $5.
Okay, cool.
Coffee you get.
This is such an overused example, but let's say you drink 2 coffees a day. Well, what if you could just drink 1 and take that other $5 and put it into a foundation like you're doing? Mm-hmm. Or you set up a springing trust for your kids. Yeah. You know what I mean? $5 a day adds up over time. And I think that closing a silly little loop like that ultimately is going to put you in a better place down the road, or your loved ones in a better place down the road. Yeah. So I think that like looking at some of those small open loops in your finances could be a big deal.
I think that's huge because that was just like you, where you were like, hey, this doesn't agree with me. It's not congruent with what I want to do in the long term. Like, but I'm ignoring it. I was at that point too. And I remember being at an event. It was actually Ed Milet was speaking. Okay. And I was at like the original like RTI, and he's like talking about these stages in your business. And I'm like, oh, they're like, you think you've made it, but you haven't made it, but you've had a lot of success and stuff like that. Right. And I remember that hit home to me because I was like, business is doing great. Every single month making more and more and more, but like, I'm definitely wasting money. I'm wasting money in the business. I'm wasting money personally. Sure. And, but I didn't want to like dive in because I didn't want to have that like a reflection of that accountability almost on myself.
That discomfort.
I didn't want to get there. So I had it was years ago. And I was like, and then eventually I had to like, you had to confront it. You have to confront your demons, so to speak. And as you were talking, I thought about 2 things. I thought about an extreme example where like, it's been a little over 2 years for me when I stopped drinking. you know, and I stopped drinking 2 years ago. And originally it just started where I was like, man, I'm going to take 30 days off. I was at my best friend's wedding, you know, and, you know, we had a great night. We partied and stuff like that. But when I woke up the next morning and I was too hungover to hike, you know, because I was out in the Pocono Mountains. I was too hungover to hike. I think my girlfriend and I at the time, you know, got in a little argument, whatever. So like there was some tension in the morning. And I was like, this sucks. And it was all because of drinking. But then I was extrapolating it more, you know, between the drinking and partying that I was doing, I was also wasting a ton of money.
So much money.
And I think it would really make people uncomfortable to know how much money I wasted, because I did the math over 2 years. But I was partying every single weekend.
Okay.
And, you know, we were going hard.
Yeah.
And then there was also the times where like I spent $15K in a night and I would spend $10K in a night. And I had like a couple of those in a year, you know, so over a couple of years. So I added it up and I was like, wow, the amount of money that I have spent. I was like, so me just honestly, I think that point of me, it was started because I wanted to, it actually was interesting because the finances part came a little bit later, like reflecting on it.
Yeah.
But it was like, hey, I missed out on this opportunity where I was, you know, so getting in nature and I loved it. I wasn't able to do that because I was so hungover and I didn't like that feeling. I was like, I'm going to take 30 days off.
Yeah.
And then that 30 days off just kept going and kept going and everything else in my life started improving. And then I looked at it like financially and I was like, I am not wasting a ton of money like I was. Like every weekend, every month, the amount of money that I was wasting. And then I did the math over the last 2 years, I think, that I was like, wow, like there's multiple six figures that were spent, you know, on this. And I was like, all right, cool. Like done with that.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's an sign of almost an extreme end of things.
Yeah.
But then even recently, like the coffee's a great example. Like in every probably finance book you'll read, they kind of talk about that. Whether it's like, you know, Starbucks or it's, you know, spending $3 to $5 a day, like those things, if you do that every single day and you put it in something, it compounds, like that adds up. So it's also like the opportunity cost from that. Yeah. You know, so I do actually drink a lot of coffee. This is my third cup today. But, you know, I do it at home now. Yeah. You know, I will go out and get coffee, but it's very rarely. You know, I'm also not one of those people who thinks that like you have to like limit. Like I'm also like have an abundance mindset. Like if you like getting coffee, just make sure you're making more money. Sure. But, you know, so like now, but I enjoy doing it at home because if I was to go out and get 3 coffees, like I would already be $15 in, and you know, it's like the morning still, you know, and it's like, regardless if you could afford it, it's also wasteful. Sure. You know, so it's ignoring getting that house in order, but it's also those small things, those disciplines, they carry over in other aspects of your life. If you're going to be smarter, you know, hey, not partying that weekend or not, you know, spending as much when you're going out and drinking or limiting your drinking or whatever, or limiting how many coffees you buy out a week or something like that, then it's going to carry over to like, what other areas am I being wasteful on? What other areas am I ignoring, especially when it comes down to my finances? For sure. That is, you know, going to screw yourself up in the long term. You know, you're going to stuck working until you're dead. You know, and it's not because you actually enjoy working; it's because you have to. And that's a big difference. Yeah. You know, I think the goal of everybody is to get to the point where like you don't have to do anything; you get to do something. Yep. And that's like, especially financially, where I would love everybody to be. Absolutely.
So you asking those simple questions is, if we look at this as like a higher level game here, entrepreneurship, operating at a high level on whatever discipline you're in, it's an awareness game. Yeah. I like that. Everything is an awareness game when it comes to this, because if you can ask those challenging questions and then you can hold yourself accountable to your answer one way or another, you're winning. You can really win the game here. But it's awareness. It's awareness around the sabotaging habits, the sabotaging behaviors, the sabotaging beliefs. And when you can hold yourself accountable to those, then, I mean, you can really do some good in the world. Yeah.
I think that's so far my biggest takeaway from this today is legit that. And I think that is what separates those that continuously achieve success from those who don't or never even get there. No doubt. It's holding themselves accountable. We're all guilty of having bad habits, doing dumb things, whatever, and that's totally cool. Like that's part of life. Yep. But it's continually doing that, especially when you're aware of it, or not trying to find out how can I improve. I think that's kind of like a testament a little bit to the society today a bit, you know, as I don't want to take accountability for my actions. I just want things given to me. Sure. And I want to do less and less and less, but I want you to give me more and more and more. Right. You can get anything that you want. Starts with holding yourself accountable and making those small actions turn into large actions and doing it consistently over over time.
And the things that people aren't going to see.
Yeah.
If I showed you my list right now, at the very top in all bold and caps, it says no reels.
Yeah.
Because as of about 2 weeks ago, I got sucked into watching reels on social media.
Yeah.
And I realized that I'm wasting so much time watching reels.
Yeah.
And so my accountability for myself today is I have a problem with reels right now. And today I'm not gonna watch any reels. But it's holding yourself accountable to silly little things that are causing you peace of mind, causing to use time efficiently, that people will never see. That ultimately is what makes you a champion. And I think that, like, for me, with an athletic background, I want to win. I want to win. And I'm only going to win if I can get a hold of the things that are holding me back.
I think there's, for most people, and I know for me, like, two of those areas, so what people don't see, you know, actually, especially on TikTok, it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole.
Of course.
It's an amazing way they structured it. That's like the whole plan. But it's as simple as, too, is like, are you hitting snooze? You know, so like, that's one thing. Like, not only are you starting your day on a loss, you're teaching yourself it's okay to not follow through with your commitments. You know, and you're having it, whether you hit it snooze once, twice, 3 times. Like, obviously, I used to hit snooze a ton. Now, say the alarm goes off, I'm up. You know, even if I go to bed late or whatever, I got caught up something, if I'd say, hey, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. because that's what time I wake up now, like, that's when I'm waking up, regardless or not. Like, I made that commitment, so I'm not going to hit snooze. And then I'm going to start my day with, you know, my you know, coffee. Or actually, first thing I do is always, I take the dogs out, you know, and we get in nature and I let them go out and I just stare up at the dark mountain sky. Like, and that's what I do. Like, that's how I start.
So good.
But then, you know, also the other thing is Netflix, you know, because when you were talking about you were getting sucked into reels, like, I used to get really sucked into, like, Netflix because I love movies and TV. And, like, that's kind of how I veg, especially when I first started my business. That was actually my reward because I was working so much getting started that I was at my gym all the time. And I'm actually relatively introverted. So when my week was done, I worked Sunday through Saturday morning. That Saturday was a movie day. So I allowed myself, but I didn't watch TV at all throughout the week at that point, or, you know, TV or movies or whatever. But then I would just veg out and recharge on Saturdays. But then as, you know, things have become a lot more accessible and a lot easier to do, you know, and then it's like Netflix, it's like, it's easy. And I think this, you know, I use those as 2 examples because I think a lot of people can relate to it. It's like easy just to watch Netflix and then keep going. You can watch another episode and another episode and another episode. And one, out here where we're recording from, I can't really do that because my internet isn't good enough and I can stream. So that's been good enough. But now also I'm like, well, how is this serving me? You know, how is this, you know, I could sit down and I can, you know, take a look at the things I need to do. I can, you know, if I'm stuck watching Netflix, how am I going to get out in nature? You know, how am I going to do the other things? Is it's like one thing turns into another, I'm not going to be able to read. So I think those are 2 areas that, like, at least for me, like, I stopped hitting snooze. And then I stopped watching Netflix. Part of it was because my internet good enough. And I apologize for everybody. I left my Slack open, by the way. So I'm gonna, like, probably close this. I thought I closed it. There we go. And so obviously the team is waking up and they're responding to my early messages. But I think those are the 2 things. You can easily get sidetracked in those things.
No doubt.
And I also think a big thing is, like, when you actually stick to those, it's telling yourself you're sticking to your commitments and you're getting success. And when you stick to your commitments, it does something to you. You probably know what it does. I don't. But it's or, you know, it is. It's being honest with yourself. And I think those are huge.
I think it's rewiring beliefs. And that's another thing is, like, it rewires the belief that I am somebody that holds myself to higher standards. And that is, like, one of those beliefs that takes the most repetition in order to change. You know, you have, like, these high level beliefs and these, like, mid-level beliefs and low level beliefs. And each one of those takes a separate amount of time to rewire. And one of the hardest ones to rewire are always beliefs. They're the ones that are ingrained in us at the deepest levels. And they take the most practice and time to change. But ultimately, those are the ones that will move the needle most for us over the long term. So I think that it's definitely something that we need to look at, is our awareness around our habits, behaviors, and beliefs.
That's huge. That's big.
And I think if I can give like one more of these areas that we need to put focus into, it's going to come at no surprise, but it's our health and fitness. Mm-hmm. But specifically, let's talk fitness. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the foods that we eat are important. That's a no-brainer. But fitness, you have to be fit. You have to be able to train. You have to be able to lift and push and pull and run and swim. You have to be able to do those things if you're going to. Now Slack's going at the other one.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do these things, man. You know, not just because they make you better, but these are all things that humans are supposed to do.
Yeah.
I think what's kind of funny from a higher level viewpoint is like for example, like I'll run a marathon and I'll get a bunch of applause and all of this. And in my head, I'm like, okay, that's cool. I appreciate these people for acknowledging me. But at the same time, I'm supposed to be able to run a marathon. I'm supposed to be able to go out and hike a mountain. I'm supposed to be able to swim across a lake. These are all things that we were supposed to do as humans, but we've got away from them over time.
Yeah.
They make us more well-rounded. They allow us to solve problems at a higher level. They allow us to adapt to extreme circumstances and to be able to deal with stress. Mm-hmm. And if we're not doing these things, we're missing out on a big part of what the human experience is all about.
Yeah.
And it's actually causing us more stress and frustration and pain if we're not fit.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be an elite athlete to be fit. Like that's not really what I'm talking about here. But what I am saying is you damn sure better be able to run. Okay? You better be able to push and pull and lift some weights. It makes everything easier. And there are so many parallels between training and being in business. Mm-hmm. And I tell all of my high-performing and entrepreneurial clients this. Whether or not you want to admit it, you're an athlete.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you can start rewiring that belief is that when you go to the gym or you go to the mountains or wherever it is that you go to exercise, you're not working out. You're training. And you have to change that belief that working out and training are two completely separate things. Now, working out to me, I see working out as like, you know, and no disrespect to this person, but let's just say it's the person who randomly will go into the gym. And you see these people all the time. I know you do. They kind of like look around. They like aimlessly move from machine to machine. They don't really know what the hell they're doing. You've probably seen them in the gym for 2 years or more now, and they look the same, right? We all have seen these people. These people are just working out. They're just going in there to check a box, which is fine. But when you shift from that way of thinking to, no, I'm going in to train, there's specificity. There's desirable outcomes. There's a clear-cut direction that you're moving towards. And you're doing these things so that it affects every other area of your life in a positive way.
Yeah.
You're creating and generating energy in the gym or in the mountains so that when it comes time to give that big keynote speech or to be able to get on and on stage and sell your product or service, you're able to do it at a really freaking high level. But if you don't see it as training and if you don't start seeing yourself as an athlete, as a high-performing person, you're missing out on something really big here.
Well, I think that carries over in a few areas where it's just like everybody has the capability to be a high performer.
100%.
Every single person. And it's okay, depending on where you are in that season, to do that. So if somebody goes to the gym and they don't know what they're doing, and it's like their first time and they're just getting started, like that's okay.
No doubt.
You're getting started and you know that. But the difference is when that's all you do and you don't look to improve and you don't look to change. Right. You know, it's the difference, you said, being present and showing up. Like, it's not okay. There's no reward just for like, well, I'm going. Like, shouldn't that count? It's like, no, if you're there for an hour and you literally do a minute of work, like that's not good. You didn't push yourself. You didn't strive to improve. You don't have actually any specific goals or any of that stuff. So I think that that's where like kind of that difference is. Like, if you're just getting started, cool.
Yep.
Like, great job on getting there.
Yep.
But there becomes a point where like now you're just not even looking to accomplish anything.
Yep.
And I think that happens. You're just checking a box, and then happens in every aspect of life. And then again, if you're doing that, that's how you do one thing, is how you do everything.
Yep. So
if you're not even trying to improve there, then you're not going to be trying to improve anywhere in life. So I think that was huge.
Yeah, man.
So you've shared a ton that hopefully the people that are listening or watching can be like, oh, maybe those are some of the areas that I haven't actually focused on and I can improve on. And then one thing I kept thinking about is as you're sharing this, and I think we kind of like alluded to it, but we jumped over it, was we generally, if you're a business person, like you have hopefully a vision for your business.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't have a vision for their life.
Yeah.
And they're missing that aspect. So a lot of these things, like areas we might not have, maybe like, oh, I've never even thought of that before. But I think even to hey, you have all these things that you can take action in, and there's tons more. But it's like, first off, I think the first thing is like, what's your life? What do you actually want your life to look like? What is the vision for you now and in the future? And that's something that we worked on a lot.
For sure.
Like that was the first stuff that we worked on.
Yep.
And that was all that homework that I had. So do you want to touch on a little bit of that before we start wrapping this up?
Okay. So one of the very first things that I typically do is I ask my clients, where do you want to go from here? Mm-hmm. What's important to you now? Something you ask me pretty regularly is like, what are your goals for the week? Mm-hmm. Most people aren't too sure about what that is, which is fine. Here's how we get clear on it. There's really like two big things. And I've kind of like called this your power plan. Mm-hmm. Okay. Your power plan number one is what's the vision for your health or your life, whichever you want to focus on first. Mm-hmm. It's totally cool. But the vision for your health or for your life is very specific. Mm-hmm. It's not, I want to achieve this, this, and this. It's the result of achieving that stuff. So for example, the vision for my life is I want to be able to have freedom to wake up in the morning, to get into my hot tub, be able to plan my day, and then go and hang out with my friend Bob and record a podcast and not have to answer to anybody if I don't want to, because ultimately I really cherish friendships. I really cherish my time and my freedom. Yeah. That's the vision for your life. Yeah. And I think that getting clear on like what you want to be able to do with your days and who you want to be able to spend time with and what you want to do is most important here. So I think that at the surface level, you got to get clear on the vision for your life, for your health. Okay. But what I want to go into more detail on is the second part of the power plan, which is your principles or your standards or your ethos, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. In the military, they call it their ethos. This is important because as you start to rewire your thinking and as you start to maybe go down a different path to start holding yourself to higher standards, you got to know what those standards are, those principles are. I kind of relate it to like bumper bowling. Okay. If I'm bumper bowling, I got parameters on either side that are going to course correct me if things get off, right? Our principles or our ethos are those bumpers. If you don't know what it is you stand for, and you start getting off on course, how are you going to know when to come back on track? That's what those ethos or those principles do. So, for example, these could be 5 things, these could be 10 things. But like, what are the things that you stand for now? Yeah. What are the things that are going to allow you to get to the place that you want to be right now? Well, for me, like one of them is I choose to lead from the front. That's a principle. That's part of my ethos. Yeah. I'm not going to ask a client to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. I'm not going to tell you to go bench press if I don't bench press, right? So like you got to be able to lead from the front. Yeah. And a lot of times leading from the front means just doing things without telling people. You know what I mean? Like not everything you do has to be on social media. I think that's really important. Yeah. So getting clear on your principles or your power plan is really, really important. And these things can change over time. I feel like over the past 4 or 5 years, my principles and my ethos has changed probably three good times. Wow. And that's okay because as you go down the path, things kind of change a little bit. It looks a little bit different. And it's important to be able to be flexible with that. Yeah. So it's really important to create those two things, the vision for your life, for your health, and then identifying what your principles or your ethos is. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, man.
So that's huge. So like get your vision, get your ethos. Then from there, once you actually know, hey, what is this life supposed to look like for me? Then I can actually start looking about, hey, what are these areas I need to work on? Yep. And then what are my mission criticals? Yep. And if you do those, then you're going to get to where you want to be.
That's it, man.
And it's just consistently showing up.
That's
Dude, I love that.
Yeah, man.
You shared a ton of gold today. I really appreciate you being here. Friendships are really important for me. For you being here, it's really awesome. And I gained a ton from it. Yeah. So I think we already kind of like summed up today for everybody. So if somebody wants to kind of like find out more about you, if they're like, hey, shit, I'm actually not doing this stuff, or I just really love what he had to share, where can they find you at?
So I'm most active on Instagram.
Okay.
That's the place that I really have been hanging out most lately. Send me a message. If there was something that really hit for you in this episode, let me know what it was. I respond to every message in there. I'm not one of those guys that just like let stuff sit in the message request folder. But yeah, send me, tag me, whatever. I'd love to have a little conversation with you on what was most helpful.
What's your handle?
Handle is at Rasta Runner with an underscore. Rasta Runner with the underscore.
We'll have that in the show notes too.
For sure.
So before we wrap this up, is there anything else you'd love to share?
I just want to acknowledge you, man. I think that, since we've started, a lot has changed for the better. I think that when you and I first started talking, you were in a place where you were doing really well, but there were some things that you really wanted to work on. And where we're at today is just such a huge contrast from where we started for the best. And, I just want to acknowledge your hard work and your consistency. For example, with this podcast, you weren't doing a podcast when we first started, and here you are, and it's going really well. So just want to acknowledge your hard work.
I appreciate that, dude.
Yeah, man.
And as I've shared, that's because of you. We all have to take the actions and we have to be accountable to ourselves. But, I've talked about it several times on this podcast, is having those people that are coaching you, they're keeping you accountable, I think are huge. And when I started, I went to him like, hey, like, I know there's something more I want out of life. Like, life's pretty good, but I'm not feeling as fulfilled as I should be. There's something missing. I don't know exactly what that is. And that's why I wanted you on here today, because if there's a missing piece when it comes to entrepreneurship, there's nobody that can uncover it quite like you. And then make sure people actually get there. I don't know how long it's been. It's been quite a bit since we've been working together. And it's just awesome to see, for me, my progression. And a big thing for me too is like, I see the progression you have and the things that you do live by it. So that really helps me. So a lot of where I'm at today as finding like, hey, these are the things that I love doing, and these are my passions, this is my purpose, and I'm getting more fulfilled as a human, not just as a business owner or whatever. It's because of the things that we've done together.
Much love.
So I appreciate you being here, man. Thank you so much.
Much love.
Old brother. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for spending your time with me today. I made this show to help people just like you overcome the challenges and adversity that come with entrepreneurship. So if you know someone that could truly benefit from today's show, please be sure to share this episode with them. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week on Unleashing Greatness.